When I look back at that moment, I realize that sometimes the simplest decisions open doors to truths we never expected. My name is Rebecca Thompson. I'm a 43-year-old woman living in a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas, with my husband, Daniel, and our 17-year-old son, Ethan. I thought life had already handed me most of its surprises, but I was wrong. What began as a simple favor for Ethan agreeing to model for his art project turned into a journey that exposed hidden struggles, tested relationships, and ultimately brought our family closer together. Ethan had always been creative. From the time he was a little boy, he loved sketching on scraps of paper, doodling in the corners of his school notebooks, and spending hours with paint sets instead of video games. He was gentle, thoughtful, and deeply observant. His dream was to apply to the Rhode Island School of Design, and he'd been working on his portfolio for months. One evening, after dinner, he approached me nervously. "Mom," he said, fiddling with the edge of his shirt. "I need someone to model for my final project in art class. I don't want to just draw from photos. I want something real. Would you help me?" I smiled. "Of course, honey. What do you need me to do?" He looked relieved. "Just sit, pose a little. Maybe wear something simple. My teacher said I need to capture expression and emotion, not perfection." It sounded innocent enough, but what I didn't realize was how much sitting for him would reveal not just about his talent but about my own life. The next day, we set up in the sunroom. Ethan dragged in his easel and sketchbook, and I sat in a wooden chair near the window where the light poured in. At first, it felt awkward. I wasn't used to being still while someone observed me so closely. He asked me to tilt my chin slightly, to relax my shoulders, to look out the window as if lost in thought. As minutes turned into hours, I noticed the way he studied me. Not as his mother but as an artist searching for truth in lines, shapes, and shadows. Something inside me shifted. When was the last time anyone had really looked at me like that? Daniel was a good man, but work had consumed him for years. He was a financial advisor, often buried in spreadsheets or late-night calls. We loved each other, but somewhere along the way, we'd grown apart in the little things. Ethan's project became a ritual. Every evening after school, we'd sit together for an hour. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we were quiet. But each session opened conversations we hadn't had in years. He told me about his fears of rejection from art school, about the pressure he felt to prove himself, about a girl he liked but was too shy to approach. I shared stories of my own teenage years, my struggles with self-doubt, and even how Daniel and I met in college. One evening, Daniel came home early and peeked into the sunroom. He watched quietly as Ethan sketched and I held my pose. "You two look so focused," he said softly. "I haven't seen this kind of energy between you in a while." I laughed. "It's his art project. He's the serious one." But Daniel's words stuck with me. He was right, there was a kind of connection happening that I hadn't expected. It wasn't about modeling at all. It was about slowing down, being present, and listening. A week later, Ethan finished his piece. He unveiled it to us in the living room, placing the canvas carefully against the wall. What I saw took my breath away. It wasn't a perfect likeness of me, it wasn't about vanity or beauty. It was raw. My face carried lines of tiredness I didn't notice before, but also strength. My eyes, though slightly weary, looked alive, as if holding on to hope. It was me in a way I hadn't seen myself in years. Daniel stared at it for a long time. Then, almost unexpectedly, he put an arm around me. "Rebecca," he whispered, "I've been so caught up in work, I didn't realize how much I've missed just seeing you. Not just looking at you, but really seeing you." The truth hit me then, the real story wasn't about art. It was about being noticed again. About remembering that under the weight of bills, schedules, and routines, we were still people who needed connection. That painting opened conversations between Daniel and me that had long been buried. We talked late into the night about how distant we'd become, about the silence at the dinner table, about the fact that our love hadn't disappeared, it had just been buried under responsibilities. Ethan, without knowing it, had reminded us what it meant to pause, to observe, to appreciate. When Ethan finally submitted his project, his teacher praised it, not just for its technique but for its soul. He later told me, "Mom, I didn't realize how much of you I'd been missing too. Sitting with you every day, it made me realize you're not just Mom. You're a whole person with a story. And I'm proud of you." His words brought tears to my eyes. For so long, I had felt invisible, just the one who cooked, cleaned, and kept the house running. But through Ethan's eyes, through his art, I rediscovered myself. Months later, Ethan was accepted into art school. When he opened the letter, we all cried together. He said the portfolio wouldn't have been complete without that painting. And I knew he was right, not because of the brushstrokes, but because of the truth behind them. The truth that changed everything was simple. Sometimes love is not lost, it's just waiting to be seen again. And sometimes it takes something as small as agreeing to model for your son's art project to remind you who you are and how much you mean to the people around you.